Are you planning for your first cruise and feeling a little overwhelmed?
Well, we've been there, but after 50 plus cruises, we're going to go back and analyze what we would have done on that very first cruise ourselves.
Hi there. So we are Jill and Jerry, the Cruising Canucks. And like Jerry just previously said, we've been on over 50 cruises and we've got a lot of people asking us, how do I know which cruise line to pick? What one's your favorite? And there's a lot of questions that you have to ask yourself before you book that first cruise.
Yeah, and Bruno's here as well today. And if he gets a vote, he would suggest to any of the puppies out there, don't let them go on the first cruise because it's going to be addicting. But if you do decide to finally go on that first cruise, and that's one of the most popular questions I get, even in my day-to-day life, when I'm talking to people who have never cruised before, they say, what cruise line should I choose? What should be my first cruise? We thought we've had so much interest that we are going to pull that all apart today. Mm-hmm. But maybe we should start with personal experience. We had a first cruise long time ago.
Oh, and
was it a good choice? Did we do it right?
Did we do it right? Somebody was very nervous about getting on a cruise for the first time, wasn't sure whether he would enjoy it, wasn't sure whether, motion sickness would be an issue, all these sort of things that a lot of people that have never spent a night on a cruise ship might worry about. So we tipped our toe in, but very gently, because our very first cruise was only a 3-night cruise.
Yes, I was a little worried about all those things that you first cruisers worry about, and I was worried about motion sickness. I didn't think if it would be my thing. I was used to doing like land-based trips where you go and stay somewhere and see something specific, thinking, what am I going to do on a cruise ship? But here we are, 50 some odd cruises later, and I guess it must have been a good first cruise for us.
It was.
But also keeping that in mind, we're going to talk about this today. That was at a different time in our life. We had different priorities. And so we've learned through the years that what your first cruise is probably depends on where you are in your life as far as budget and situation and the time of your life. And
age.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to do today, we're going to break all that apart. And then what we're going to do towards the end is I'm going to actually go and I'm going to throw at you some real case scenarios of people saying, okay, here's a certain person, this situation of life, what would you advise them? So we'll do a few of those at the end just to kind of play a role as to what we are kind of putting all this together to mean. Right. We have not compared notes. We find that we do these videos better if we just kind of come at it from our own angle.
We often disagree. So we're not saying that you're going to get a definitive answer, but hopefully we'll engage you in a conversation and make you think of some things.
So let's just start from that. A lot of people like to kind of drag it out to the end as far as what's the most important thing stated at the end. Let's hit it right at the beginning.
All right.
When you were thinking about picking that first cruise, what was the single most important thing that you came up with?
I think the single most important thing in my mind is, who are you cruising with? Because depending on the type of cruise depends on whether I'm cruising with just my husband, whether I'm cruising with family, whether we're cruising with a group of friends, whether, so who you're cruising with is the first thing to consider.
Interesting. I believe that that's part of the beginning stages of figuring out what you want. Mm-hmm. I had down the most important thing about choosing your first cruise is to choose the right cruise line for you. And there is a cruise line, I believe, for everybody. Mm-hmm. But that was my first one. But it's kind of, you're kind of getting there, I guess, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So, I do agree there's a cruise line for everybody. But for me, there's not just one cruise line. It changes depending on the type of vacation I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for a romantic couple getaway, that's a different cruise than if I'm taking my grandchildren on a cruise, or that's a different cruise than if we're going with our parents, or if we're hosting a group cruise. So it changes depending on what the goal of this vacation is for you.
Yeah, we recently had an experience where we were on a cruise ship and we loved our experience on the cruise ship, but we thought the next cruise we're going to be going with was a group, and we thought that ship would not work for a group experience, even though it worked for us just as a couple. Mm-hmm. So I guess I see what I'm saying, that depending on your situation really frames what cruise you should choose. Yeah. I think there's some big arching themes that come into play as far as choosing the first cruise. I think first is budget.
Yes.
I think also is the length of cruise.
Yes.
And I also believe that as far as, the vibe, the cruise line for you, that goes more into kind of your demographic and what it is you're looking for out of the cruise. I think those are the big ones.
Okay. I have a few more.
Oh, add a few more.
One that I think might be a little bit big for a lot of people is itinerary. If you have traveled the world extensively, then maybe itinerary has a different weight in picking a cruise than if you've never left your country before. So itinerary, I think, plays a pretty big role in it too. I, for instance, love to snorkel, and the more time that I can be in the ocean with a snorkeling mask on, the happier I'll be. Whereas I know some people love hiking and outdoors, and they want to be able to get off a cruise ship and do a 5-kilometer hike while looking for, the natural resources and that sort of thing in the area with the wildlife and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that an easy way to get to there is you might be talking to other people that have cruised. Maybe that's why you're looking at your first cruise. And you need to look at the people around you and say, who is like me? Who has the same type of interests? Who would travel the same as me? Because if you've got those party friends that are up till 3 a.m. and they just go nuts for 7 days on a cruise, and you're more just kind of the laid back, I want to sit by the pool and just kind of read a book. Those are two different cruises. You can do them on the same cruise ship, but it's not easy. There's some ships that are meant to be the party ship, and some are meant to be, the more relaxed vibe.
Yes, I agree. That was one of my points I had too.
And really, budget is going to dictate a decent amount of what your first cruise is going to be, because obviously there are different. There's the mainstream cruise lines, there's the premium lines, which is a little bit of a step up. There's the luxury lines, there's the ultra luxury lines. So cost is going to have a factor.
Absolutely.
And if you were kind of in the lower budget range, then that's fine. We started there. You can have a great cruise experience, and there are some cruise lines there that we would choose. And I think what we'll do eventually is we'll kind of maybe run through a couple of different cruise lines as far as what type of person that might match.
Okay.
And I think that also length plays into it as well. That there are some itineraries, Caribbean, for example, I would even say Alaska in the summer, that are kind of meant for that 7-day getaway. And then there's other itineraries that are more exotic, and you're looking, if you've got more time, then that may impact what your first cruise is. That I think it'd be very adventurous after doing a 3-day cruise to start my cruise career to jump into something like 2 weeks long. But maybe you're there.
Right.
I kind of feel though that you kind of need to maybe do a pre-cruise. If that's your dream, is a around the world cruise, maybe try it first.
Yeah, maybe not book the 3-month cruise. If you've never been on a cruise ship before, you might want to get on a cruise ship for a few nights just to see if you like the whole atmosphere and vibe of that, for sure.
Yeah, and I think some pitfalls to avoid when you're looking at that first cruise. I don't know if you've got some pitfalls.
Okay.
But I've got a couple that, first of all, when you go to book your first cruise, there is a temptation to do this, and we still even try to do this from time to time, is we look for the cheapest cabin available and say, that's good enough. I just want to go on a cruise and see what it's like. But if you book the cheapest cabin, there are things about the cheapest cabin that may make you not enjoy that cruise or want to ever come back to cruising again. So maybe that's not the only solution, unless the budget is that tight that's where you're at.
Well, and I think, going back to, there's a cruise line for everybody out there. We know some people that their very first cruise they went on, they were in their 20s, and they picked a ship that was a longer itinerary, and the majority of people that were on that cruise with them were retired people. And so there was like a friends of ours that were in their 20s at the time were cruising with people that were all 60 and plus. And so they felt like they didn't have any sort of people to hang out with, or they didn't have anything in common with the people they were cruising with. So again, we go back to picking the right cruise for where you are and what stage of your life is very important. One of the other things that I think about too, going to that, is also if you require any sort of special needs. If you require an accessible cabin, sometimes picking your cruise line is limited, or you have to book it far out because there's only so many accessible cabins on board a cruise ship. So we know that a lot of people that require an accessible cabin will often book their cruise a year to 2 to even 3 years out. But the other thing is dietary restrictions too. There are some cruise lines that are caters greater and give you way more options if you have a dietary restriction, as opposed to some other cruise lines that don't really excel at that area. So that all plays a part in picking your first cruise too.
And another pitfall to avoid is not knowing what's included on a cruise. Some cruise lines offer some things that are included in your fare. Some have more restaurants that are included in your fare. Some have more base fare that's less expensive, but there's more upsell to get things on the cruise that you may be expecting to have included in your fare. So research on that is important. We might touch on that a little bit more here. Also, avoid the third-party booking sites. That I would say, if you've decided that you're booking a Princess cruise, book it with Princess Cruise or a travel agent that you know and trust, not a travel agent from a international conglomerate where it's just a name on an agency, with someone you actually trust that you may have booked travel before with. And the other thing is, waiting too long. Timing is everything in this day and age of the cruise business. If you see a deal, you're ready to go for a cruise, don't think, you know what, we'll look another week or two. I like the sounds of that, but we'll come back. I can almost guarantee the price will have changed in a couple of weeks. And
how many times has that happened to us? There, a lot of times he's like, oh, I found a great cruise for this price. We should really do it. And then, we think about it for a day or two, and then we go back and we're like, yeah, let's book it. That was a really good deal. And we go to book it, and that deal is no longer available.
It's gone.
We don't like that cruise lines do that, but they do that.
Yeah, and the last thing I had as a pitfall would just be aware of the passport situation. That a lot of people are surprised you need a passport to cruise. Now, in saying that, there are some itineraries still out of the United States that you can cruise without a passport, but I think that group is getting smaller and smaller, and the farther you want to travel in the world, the more likely you're going to need a passport. For us here in Canada, we always need a passport. We go on a cruise. There's no option to go otherwise. So those are the pitfalls I had.
Okay.
And what do you have for a couple more tips before we get into the case studies?
Well, the other tip that I would think that I would mention is how you plan on getting to that cruise, because that comes into our planning stage when we're booking a cruise. We may find a cruise ship, an itinerary, a time of year, all of the things is matching that we want to get on that ship. But before we book it, we also look at, we know coming from Canada, we have to fly there 99% of the time. So the availability of flights and where we're going to stay to get there, all of that becomes a component that you have to plan also before you make that decision.
And that was one of my things to make sure you avoid or you research a little bit is the hidden costs. And that would be one of the hidden costs is you're not just booking a cruise. That very rarely, there are some, but very rarely does your cruise come with your flights and your hotels and your transportation and everything else to get to and from your home to your ship. There are a few exclusive lines that do offer that. There are. But they're usually the very high end of the price category. For that. Yes, for sure. And so maybe what we should do before we get to the case studies and kind of some examples is let's just run through the major cruise lines. Okay. And just kind of say what type of person we think that cruise is meant for, because that might help you right off the bat. So let's start off with our very first cruise line. Let's go Carnival. Who is Carnival Cruises, really meant for this day and age?
Well, we were in our early 30s when we first started cruising with Carnival, raising children. We had 3 children at the time, and we cruised with Carnival quite successfully for many years. We would go and take our children with us, and we would go by ourselves sometimes. So we really felt like at the time Carnival was a family-oriented cruise line. They had lots of activities. They had great kids clubs. They had all kinds of entertainment for the children on board. But we also appreciated that they have adults only sections on their cruise ship. So when we were traveling without our kids, we could have a little quiet sanctuary time.
Yeah, I do believe that price point is important for Carnival as well. It is if you're looking to be cost effective and you're looking at family. And I think the one big thing that if you're looking for a party and a go and all the action, Carnival is the way to go. You can avoid that stuff in some ways, but a lot of the ship is set up that it's going to be everything from line dancing to trivia to,
hairy chess contests on the pool deck
so I think
karaoke.
If you're looking for an active, celebratory type of cruise and having a great time, like a really good time, I think Carnival is the way to go. It's not if you're looking for a romantic, quiet getaway. That's not your cruise line for sure. And I think kind of related to Carnival, but at a different price point. In that same area, I would say that Royal Caribbean is in that same space. So Royal Caribbean, I'd say, again, for families, like you said.
I would say they're even more for families in our experience. We've cruised with Royal Caribbean a couple of times, and we've often see a lot of families when we cruise with them. And they seem to have great programs for their children. And they're a little bit more expensive than Carnival generally, but they usually provide a few more options. So, yeah.
And then the newer ships for both of those lines are very large ships. So if you don't mind being around a lot of people, that you're going to be into the biggest ships in the world when it comes to those cruise lines.
Right.
So, the Royal Caribbean, I think, is maybe a little less party, a little more family, and a little more expensive. So, again, there's like a slight change that you get in those two experiences. Okay. I still think a good entry point for a cruiser would be either line if you're that age with that type of family situation.
And I think I would put MSC into that same sort of category. We've cruised with MSC a few times. once by ourselves, once with children and grandchildren. There were a lot of families with us, and they do sort of have some nice kid areas on the ship we were on. For sure, they had a beautiful kids park area, all that kind of thing. So they cater to families, and they're a pretty good entry point when it comes to costs.
Yeah,
getting on their cruise.
MSC and Carnival are kind of fighting for that lower price category in cruising, and yeah, they're relatively new to the North American cruising market compared to Carnival and Royal Caribbean, so they're kind of playing catch up. They're still getting a little bit used to what the North American market is looking for in cruising, but they are getting there with their newer ships. They're very large ships like Royal Caribbean and Carnival.
I will say, in looking at MSC for going out of the Caribbean, their itineraries are lacking in comparison to most other cruise ships that are in the Caribbean. They go to the exact same spots repetitively, and they don't really venture a lot out of that area. So that's been a little bit of a setback for us, in that you want to go to places we haven't been before, and they don't really offer that.
Yeah, MSC is definitely family, definitely kind of party like Carnival. I'd say that there's a lot of nights where there's a lot going on. Atrium, there's dancing, there's deck parties, everything going on. So it's a very active cruise once again. And I think that their newer ships are all larger and kind of competing for that same market. And they do have, all these lines actually have smaller, older ships that you get a slightly different vibe. But when we're talking about the brand as a whole, I would say that MSC fits in the category of those three. And I think the last one that fits with those three, even though it's changed a little bit for pricing over the years, is Norwegian Cruise Line. That it's kind of in the middle space there. I don't think they're quite in the premium space. They're close to it.
Yeah, they seem to be a little bit,
if you can get a Norwegian cruise without the drink package, it's competitive in pricing with those other ones.
Okay.
But a lot of the Norwegian cruises now, if you book farther out, or you're booking with the
they're
drink package.
All-inclusive package.
Yeah,
That's the only way they sell them.
Yeah, they're free at sea package, I guess is what to call it. So yeah, Norwegian kind of is that middle ground for me when you're moving away from those three that we've mentioned already and moving up to the next level. That I think Norwegian has, I find we've had good quality dining experiences. There are opportunities to have a little more relaxed lifestyle. I'd say the nightlife is a little more toned down than all those other ones, and maybe a little less kids activities, although their newer ships have a lot more on them.
I was just going to say that we haven't experienced their new ships, but they have a lot of things like go-karts and that type of stuff on their newer ships.
Yeah. So then when you kind of leave that category, I think you move into the next level up. I'm not going to say a lot more money, because our experience hasn't been they have a lot more, but it is a different type of experience. And I think that's when you move into your Princess and your Holland America and your Celebrity. So Princess Cruise, who's that for?
I would say that it's for couples. It's more of a romantic getaway. We've been on Princess Cruises and seen couples that are in their 20s together. Our daughter got married on a Princess Cruise to her husband, and they were in their 20s when they did that. And a lot of their friends were there with couples and that sort of thing. And yet it still appeals to our age group and older. It's a good cruise for multi-generational families, in my opinion, because there's stuff to entertain younger people right up to older people.
Yeah, I think it's a good cruise line for kind of multi-generational. If you had grandparents and parents and children all going on a cruise, I think Princess could hit a little bit for everything.
Yes.
And we've done Princess as just a couple. We've done it also as a group cruise with 50 some odd people. So it has a little bit of everything in there. I'd say that it's a lot less party than, say, a Carnival. A little more laid back, and but still with lots of things to do. So it's not like dead quiet and nothing going on. There's a lot going on in a Princess ship.
Right.
And I think it kind of appeals to that. And if you go into cruising for the reason I went into cruising, who doesn't want to be on a Princess ship after watching Love Boat when you grew up? So that's one of my big draws, is it has that connection to the classic cruising we picture when you see it on TVs growing up. So
they do offer things that sort of cater to a romantic anniversary cruise, stuff like that. They have couple massages. You can do a breakfast on your balcony, a couple's breakfast, stuff like that they cater to for that sort of occasion.
Okay, so then if someone is, say, thinking Holland America instead, what do you think? Where does that lie compared to Princess? Because it's in a similar price point. They both have packages you can get that include multiple, features on the ship.
Right. I would think Holland America is probably for the person that wants a relaxing cruise. At least that's what I feel like when I cruise with them. I know that I'm going to be able to find a nice quiet deck chair throughout the day where I can read my book, and I'm not going to hear a big party and people yelling into the speaker overhead telling me to come join the whatever activities going on. It's not like that. It's very quiet, laid back. There's activities that you can go and take part in during the day, but for the most part it's about relaxation and comfort. And then in the evening they have phenomenal musical talents throughout the ship, and there's places to go and just have fun, but in a more elegant way, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree that Holland America is definitely less party than Princess, and less party than all the other mainstream cruise lines. I think it is a classy experience. I still think there is enough going on with their focus on music. They've just rebuilt their entertainment program, which is getting kind of a new boost. And I think that their ships are beautiful ships.
Yes.
One thing that Holland America is also known for, and they've marketed over the years, is they are kind of more of a destination specialist than they are just a simple getaway vacation. That if you want to see places in the world, they literally have world cruises. They go to spots in the world that very few cruise lines go to. They were the first cruise line that ever went to Alaska, so they specialize in Alaska with some of the best, docking locations at all those different ports. So
yeah. I would think too, like when it comes to accommodations and stuff like that, their cabins are just a little more upscale than other cruise lines that we've already mentioned. So you have a more comfortable bed, you have thicker towels, you have bathrobes waiting for you in your room, you have umbrellas that you can use. Things in their cabin seem to be a little higher end, so it feels a little more special, in my opinion.
Yeah. And so I think with those two cruise lines, there's a third one in there that kind of is competing for the same space, and maybe a little bit demographic, and that would be Celebrity Cruises, which is kind of the next level beyond. It's part of Royal Caribbean, but it's a little quieter, less party, less young crowd than Royal Caribbean.
And they don't have mega large ships. Their ships are 2,000 to 3,000 passengers generally, correct? Am I right with that?
Yeah, close to that. Yeah, they're not the largest ships in the world by any means. They're kind of more small to mid-sized ships.
I would say that their ships are beautifully decorated, and it's sort of a contemporary vibe, and I think it sort of targets like young professional people. It's very chic.
Yeah,
I would say that's the word I would want to use to describe Celebrity.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was almost going to say kind of that hipster crowd, is where you've got people that are younger, but they're dressing up and they look really classy. They may be at a martini bar, but then they're also going off and doing an excursion, and they're going snorkeling, and they're still active.
Or they're at the specialty beer hub where they have all the special beers and stuff like that.
So I really think that kind of, like you said, that modern young professional is really where Celebrity's sweet spot is. That they're kind of a mix of destination and fun on the ship, and I think price point they're right there with Holland America and Princess. Sometimes a little bit more. They also have a package that you can get that will include your drinks at different levels. There's different packages available.
They have a very nice adult-only sanctuary solarium area on their cruise ships that's very relaxed and chill, and just quiet little music going there where you can read a book, swim in the pool, the hot tubs. They usually have little nibbles there, stuff like that. So it's a pretty relaxing, laid-back cruise during the day, but they always have really good nightlife going on.
Exactly. I think that they're kind of a quieter, relaxing daytime experience, and then it kind of ramps up in the evening, and everything kind of starts picking up, and it's kind of like, you've gone from having a quiet day at the pool to starting to dress up and have a nice dinner. Then also your night on the town, you're going out, maybe doing a little dancing, catching a show. It's kind of the young professionals, the regular life out at sea.
They do things like silent disco in the atrium or on the pool deck at night, stuff like that. They have amazing shows in their main theater, in my opinion.
And there's another cruise line that we didn't mention that's part of the mainstream that I'm sure people are out there. If you're into this cruise line, then you are very into this cruise line, and that is Disney Cruises. Oh. And Disney Cruises is their own niche. It's almost like a spin-off of the amusement parks, the theme parks. It is it's all Disney, of course, and it is much more expensive than a lot of the cruises.
It is.
But the experience is much different. But it's mainly built for children and lovers of Disney. In saying that, I have known couples that have gone there and travel just as a couple by themselves, and they stay. There's ways to get away from the children
area.
Yeah. So Disney's another option as well. That's in there.
It is an expensive option. We have yet to been able to get our head around the cost of a Disney cruise.
And buried somewhere in there's some other cruise lines that we've been on as well. There's we've got Cunard that's in the mix. It's starting to move into North America. I'm not sure where I put it in there. I think it's more in that Holland America Princess group.
I agree.
It's a little more classic cruising, although they are starting a change with their new ship, the Queen Anne. I think it's very similar to a Holland American experience, is how I would describe it.
Yeah, I would think it's the closest you can compare it to.
I don't think they're all the way there when it comes to stuff like the packages and stuff. That's relatively new to Cunard, where it was just usually your cruise fare, then you purchase things on board as you needed them. That they're getting into that space, but they're a little bit different. And there's also, we've been on a Morella cruise before, and that's more British crowd, European sailings, or exotic, not so much out of North America. And I would say it's more kind of in that space of I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like they use old Royal Caribbean ships and older celebrity ships. That's kind of the example. So as those ships
renovate them up and do them up nice.
Yeah, and I'd say it's more of a Carnival experience. Everybody's on there to have a great time. They're they're not really going to see the world so much as they're going to have a getaway and lay in the sun.
Relaxation, but party atmosphere going on. It's an all-inclusive cruise, so your drinks are included. You don't really feel like you're getting upsold on anything while you're there. All of that sort of thing. It's a nice vibe.
Yep. And then you move up into more of the luxury lines. So you're moving into things like, I would argue Azamara is there, Oceania is there, I would say Seabourn is up in there even more so. There's a lot of them up there. And Viking for sure, yeah. So there's those ones as well. We don't have a lot of experience on those, although watch our vlogs coming up later this year, because we will be able to show you a couple of those cruise lines.
We will be eventually.
But that's another level still, because a lot of those cruises, there's a lot more included with your fare. You know, your drink package might include, your special dining might be included, your
internet's generally
tips
included.
might be included. Yeah.
Yes.
So you have to be cognizant that it's more money, but you're actually getting more with that base fare than you do on the other cruise lines where you have to add on packages. But yeah, and I think that is, for an entry level, I think it's doable. If you already know that you're in a situation where budget is not a problem, you want something a little more exotic. They have smaller ships. They get into more, smaller ports. They have like slightly different itineraries than just going to the big spots that the bigger ships go to. So if you want something that's a little more port intensive, a little more cultural, a little more intimate when it comes to the size of the ship that you're on, I think that's where your luxury space is. You're going to get that type of experience.
And if you're looking for, a higher elevated dining experience each night and, cocktails and stuff like that, then it's a good option. Yeah,
I'd be curious. Put in the comment section below if you've ever been on your very first cruise and it was a luxury cruise. I'd be curious how you felt about that experience, because that's a high bar to start at.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing we didn't talk about, but people do kind of run into this, especially now with the increase in interest in the river cruises. Would you recommend a river cruise as your first cruise?
Yeah, so we've yet to cruise on a river cruise. It's definitely a dream of mine, and hopefully we get that accomplished sooner than later. But it would be, in my opinion, a more intimate, quiet experience than what an ocean liner cruise is.
Yeah, if you are the type of person that you're not looking for snorkeling and beaches and parties at the pool, but you're looking for destination intense. You're wanting to get off and say even ride a bike to the next port. Like it's a totally different experience. We can go into people's houses, for example, to see a cultural experience of what it's like to live in a small little community somewhere in a European river town.
So river cruises generally are more expensive than an ocean cruise, but they do offer different things like you may not get on an ocean cruise. And so like Jerry's referring to, a lot of times some, or if not all, excursions are included in the cost. So that plays into the part of it too when you're looking at budget.
Yep, and some of those cruise lines that do river cruises, they also have options all the way from, they will take you from your home all the way to the ship, or you can just book and you can show up on your own time and your own dime. So
yeah, so we just sort of talked about the major ones that are well known to people that live in North America. There's a lot more cruise lines out there cruising in Europe and other parts of the world. There's so many out of the UK that are based mainly for people in that part of the world, like P&O Cruises comes to mind right off the top of my head. And then there's quite a few German cruise line companies that are getting very popular and people are enjoying. So even just the ones we talked about, there's so many options out there. There definitely is a cruise for everybody.
And there are a lot more cruise lines than we mentioned, and there seems to be another one or two every few years that's popping up as well. So
I'm realizing as we're filming this right now that we didn't speak about another cruise line that's pretty popular and gaining popularity in North America, and that's Virgin Cruise Lines, Virgin Voyages. We've been on one Virgin cruise, and the biggest plus that a lot of people want to go on it for is because it is an adults-only cruise. It's 18 plus is what you have to be in order to get on one of these cruise ships, and we had a totally well, I shouldn't say totally, but somewhat different opinion on our Virgin experience, and I absolutely loved it and would highly recommend it to couples that are wanting to have a getaway, and maybe a group of adult friends. It would be a great one. I don't know that it would be a cruise that I would recommend for multi-generational people, or if it's for everybody's age group. There were a few times where I felt like maybe I was a little too old to be there, but in saying that, we were probably the average age, but there were a lot of young couples there too.
There you go. That's one we forgot is Virgin, and I would argue that they are in a space of their own. They're higher price point, but they're still they're the young professional crowd, also a party crowd. They're kind of a little bit of everything of the cruise lines we spoke about, yeah, for sure. But those are kind of the main ones that we run into all the time. We're pricing of cruises and looking at least from North America. There's more options when you get to Europe and different options in Asia again.
Yeah, true.
So let's go to some case studies.
Ooh, okay.
So I'm going to throw some case studies at you. Tell me what cruise line they should be on, okay?
You're putting me in the hot seat.
Yeah, so we have a family.
Okay.
They've been saving a little bit for vacation, so it's not like they're just like barely getting by. They've got children that are between the ages of 6 to 12. What cruise are they going on?
I would say Royal Caribbean.
That would have been my vote too, yes.
I really think that Royal Caribbean does a great job catering to family needs. They have wonderful cabins that are even like family cabins that you can book depending on the ship you're looking at. They have family-only lounges in some of their cruise ships. They have specific things for families traveling, no matter what age your children is. They have different clubs for different ages of children and family activities. So that would be the first sort of go-to one I would recommend.
And you thought you were on the hot seat now, but I'm going to put you on the real big hot seat, you know.
Oh, okay.
What cruise line would you tell them never to go on in that situation?
I might take some flack for this one, but I will say we were on a Holland America cruise going to Alaska a few years ago, and just over 2,000 passengers, and almost 600 of them were children, and those were probably some of the most bored children I ever seen, because there really isn't anything catering for children. They do have kids clubs, don't get me wrong, but they don't have a lot of the other things that attract children, and so a lot of children were bored, or they were getting up to mischief, pressing all the buttons in the elevator, being ridiculous on the dance floor and taking over the dance floor. I just don't feel like Holland America, even though they are offering promotions where kids can sail free, it's just not conducive to children, in my opinion.
You go. I would have actually
got me on the hot seat there. I know people will disagree with that.
I would have said the same thing, but I'll let you take the flack for that.
Yeah,
one.
exactly. Thanks, hon.
Okay, how about this couple that is in their 40s? They're on a bit of a budget, but they want a quiet, romantic getaway. What cruise are you putting them on?
I'm thinking Princess would be where I would first look at. You know, we have had some cruises with Princess that have been very reasonably priced. There has been some that are a little bit more expensive because of their destinations might be a little more exotic or whatever. But generally, you can get on Princess for a pretty good price, and I feel like it's a great couples cruise. Holland America would be also in that realm for me too.
It's funny because I would have been tempted to say maybe also Celebrity, which would catch that whole group we talked about. Mm-hmm. And I think that if they're not on too tight of a budget and you compare dollar for dollar what you're getting, depending on, I think there is a way to actually cruise Virgin without being part of the crazy.
Yeah, you don't have to be, but you can if you want.
You can relax on your balcony and in a hammock, which is unique to any other cruise line.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for a romantic getaway, and they're kind of the Virgin is kind of that's kind of their space a little bit, is kind of the love and being out there and being be yourself.
I will say you have to like a hard bed though. It's probably the hardest bed we've ever had on a cruise ship, and that was with me asking for a mattress topper. So if you want a soft, like sink-in type of bed to sleep in, I would stick with Princess and Holland America, and even Cunard has really great beds in my opinion, but Virgin has a very hard, solid mattress.
Okay, so the opposite question is coming your way again. Oh. What cruise line would you not put a couple in their 40s on that's looking for a romantic getaway?
Probably not Carnival.
Not Carnival?
Yeah, that's probably. But in saying that, we've done it in our 40s on a Carnival cruise and have successfully had a romantic. We've been on the Carnival for our anniversary, and we've just hung out in the adults only sanctuary place throughout the day, and we've had fun on the dance floor at night. So you definitely can have it. I mean, there's not any cruise that you couldn't go on. You can be as involved in the cruise activities that are going on as you want, or as uninvolved and just not do whatever is in the daily program and just have your own quiet, relaxing vacation. So it's really up to you.
And as far as a couple in their 40s, what I think where they shouldn't go is, I know I'm going to take some heat probably for this one, but I would say Royal Caribbean. I'm thinking, I don't feel that that is a couple's space. I know there's thousands of people, you can get away and do whatever you want, but I really think that that is designed for children, families, having fun, going to the private islands and the beaches and everything else that is with other people and on water slides and stuff. It doesn't feel romantic to me, so I would say Royal Caribbean would be not where I would go for a romantic getaway.
Yeah, we did a Royal Caribbean in our 40s, and it was just the two of us, and we did sort of struggle to find places to dance at night, that sort of thing, and you're right, every venue that we went to was full of multi-generational families. Generally, we saw children, grandparents, that sort of thing everywhere. And so you're right, it's not really a couple's cruise.
Now, in saying that, we are generalizing a lot about some of the biases, that there are smaller Royal Caribbean ships. They're probably more just couples and even a slightly older age group with less children. So there is that piece there, but I feel that if you're in that space, then maybe Celebrity is a better jump than Royal Caribbean as far as, Of course,
we're speaking in generalities.
Exactly.
Right now
all cruise lines, they have some of them have dozens of ships, so they're all a little bit different character for sure. Here you go. You've got a couple that just retired. They've been saving their whole life to go on a cruise. And they want to see the world as well. So what cruise line are you putting them on?
Well, there's lots of options, especially if you've been saving for a while and money's not a high priority, or budget isn't. But I would say Holland America does some really good exotic destinations at a reasonable price. So that would probably be the first one I would jump at, is Holland America.
I'd go on a limb and go to one that I have not cruised on before.
Oh.
But from what I understand, I think they kind of meet this, and I would argue with an Azamara cruise.
Oh, true.
Where I think that almost everything you would want on a cruise is included, so you don't have any extra fees. You don't have to pay for a huge drink package for being away for a long period of time. You're going to see more exotic destinations. There's smaller ships, and you're going to have a chance to see the world often in a different way than what the mainstream cruise lines do, getting into new different places. It's going to cost a little more money, but you've been saving your whole life, and I feel that Azamara might be a sweet spot there.
It might be. We don't know. I mean, we haven't cruised with them yet, but we've spoke to many people that have and absolutely love them. So yeah, that would be an option. I guess it comes also, part of the size of the ship depends on what you want to, or how you pick, right?
Yeah, if you want to see the world, a lot of those ships are smaller, is what I feel. So
so the smaller the cruise ship, generally the smaller the port stop you can get into, like the smaller communities, and not having to be, like, for instance, if you're in the Mediterranean, you can go to a quiet little village in the Mediterranean as opposed to docking in Barcelona, things like that. So that's why we talk about the size of the ship does matter, because some of the mega ships are not permitted to go into more exotic destinations.
What cruise line would you not put them on? I know mine. I'll say it before you say yours. Not a Virgin. I do not think a Virgin cruise meets that. If you saved your whole life, you want to see somewhere exotic, and you want to have just kind of a retire couple experience, I don't think Virgin is your cruise to see the world and do that.
Okay.
Again, probably take some heat. I'm sure people have done it, but I don't think they have the itineraries. I don't think they have the number of ships to provide the variety. I think their ships are too large to get into smaller ports.
Right.
And I think their demographic is just not really that retirement age folks, even though there is some that age.
There's quite a few retired age.
I don't think it fits what I picture for that. What would you say no to?
Maybe Carnival would be what I would say no to, just because I think they do sort of cater to the sort of 7-day cruise. I mean, they do have longer cruises than that, but it's more that. It's not so itinerary based. We actually did a Carnival in Europe for 21 days, but we found that they were very lacking in the information of what they gave us for ports of call as compared to when we did 22 days on a Princess cruise ship in the Med, where it was much more thought out and planned out and gave us a lot of details as to our destinations and that sort of thing.
I have saved the toughest for last.
Oh gosh, here we go.
Here we go. You are trying to find the right cruise for a solo traveler who is retired age, and she's hoping that maybe she'll make some friends on board. And we see this one all the time. What is that cruise line?
I don't know.
That's not going to help these people.
Sorry, guys. So what I can tell you from helping people that are trying to cruise solo is that MSC does offer often a really good solo rate compared to some of the cruise lines. And I do know that Holland America on their Pinnacle class ships do have solo cabins. So do a lot of other cruise lines now, like
Norwegian has a lot of deals for solos. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think the options are out there. You really do have to do your research about that if you're a solo traveler, because some cruise lines actually penalize you for cruising solo in that Celebrity charges you more because there's only one person in the room.
Yeah, I've heard something of that.
And that's so weird to me, but I think it's because they think you're not having two people to spend money on excursions and specialty dining and all the other experiences that we usually pay extra for. So yeah, solo traveling is a little bit more of a challenge because it tends to cost you more, and so I guess the cost becomes the issue. And then if you're retired, you probably want to go to places that you haven't been to before, so you're looking for a more exotic destination. So I would sort of lean towards Holland America again with that.
Yeah, I would be tempted to say I'm leaning towards Princess. My gut is telling Princess.
Oh, yeah?
Just because there is that multi-generational component in there. You might still be young at heart and want to go out and still have, on the dance floor by yourself, for all you know. You'd be able to meet people that your age. There's different things to do around the ship to keep you busy. They've got a really nice buffet if you don't want to sit by yourself in the dining room, but you can also have the option of sitting with other people and be assigned a table and meet new people in the dining room. I think Princess, like they're good at that space of, like, if you're not sure where you fit, a little bit of everybody can enjoy Princess in their own way. I
do know that every major cruise line that we've been on, in their programs, they have a solo meet up and greet activities throughout that. We have spoke to a few people that are solo traveling on different cruises, and I go back to our last Norwegian cruise. We met a gentleman that was from Australia that was cruising by himself, and he felt like there wasn't much to do as a solo traveler. So yeah, I think there are certain cruise lines that sort of try to cater to the solo traveler a little bit more, and Princess might be a good option.
We went through the case studies, we went through different cruise lines. What would be the first thing you would tell someone doing if they're going to leave after watching this video and start looking up where to go cruise? What's the first thing they should consider? I'll give you time to think. I'm going to answer mine. I'm going to say, look in the mirror and be honest with yourself as the type of vacation experience you want, because I think depending on what your situation is and what you're wanting out of a vacation depends a lot on what the ship is you choose, and choose the right cruise line. Don't just choose based on price. Don't choose it based on a friend went on it and had a good experience, because they may have went with a different reason for you. Yeah. Just stop and think, do I just want relaxation? Do I want to go and party? Do I want to see port intensive areas? All that's going to come up with a different decision as to what cruise line. So I think you need to sit down and think, what do I want out of this vacation? It's not like booking an all-inclusive where they're all going to be on a beach, they're all going to have a drink package, they're all going to be in a tropical destination with dining options. Cruises offer something different, so you kind of need to know going in what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. I would probably say the same sort of thing. You sort of have to ask your questions to yourself before you book a cruise. What is the most important thing for me? Is it budget? Then that might be different. But if it's an experience, and then what is that experience? Because different cruise lines can cater to that experience better than others.
Yeah, and I would argue that's where a travel agent is worth their weight in gold, because they know all the different lines and what kind of experience you're going to get in those different lines, and they can kind of do a little bit of helping you, nudge you in the right direction, and they're not going to cost anything more than booking directly with the cruise line themselves, so you're going to get some value there.
That's true.
So hopefully this hasn't scared you away from booking your first cruise.
And we hope that it's helped. Please comment below if you have any questions. We'll do our best to answer you to the best of our ability. We don't pretend to know everything about cruising. We just love it, and because we've done it now 50-something times, we have a little bit of experience in it, and we obviously talk to a lot of cruising enthusiasts on a daily basis, and so we've learned so much from people through our YouTube channel that we're learning more and more every day about it. So just dive in and ask questions. You can join us on our Facebook page, where there are thousands of cruising enthusiasts there that are quite willing to help you when you have questions about booking a cruise or protocols or any of those things.
And don't make the mistake I made. Don't go years and years and years of putting it off, because you might try it once and be addicted the rest of your life and wonder why I didn't do this with every vacation my whole life. So if you want to do it, do it. Don't delay it.
Thanks so much for watching.
Yes. Good luck if you're going on the first cruise, and hopefully we see you on board somewhere.